I think they've got to take a step back and take responsibility. If you're a senior executive in an organization, you've got to have that wow moment by deploying one of these AI workers in one of the areas that you've got experience in doing and get on that journey. And you can't do it internally yourself because the tech is moving too fast and the capabilities are moving too fast. So you've got to start on that journey.
Welcome to the Implement AI podcast, the podcast where we explore the impact of AI on your business. I'm Piers, Linney, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. We cover the real-world applications and impact of how AI can be practically applied to drive growth and efficiency in your organization. We cut through the jargon to focus on actionable strategies and use cases to highlight the transformational power of AI. Let's dive into today's conversation. I'm Piers.
I'm Aalok.
Right, so you're in London. We were like ships to the Mr. game. We met for like a sushi lunch, which you recorded, analysed, and put on LinkedIn, which was quite interesting. It's quite funny actually. I'm in the northwest, back down in London. So we are actually planning a trip to Dubai. So literally the end of Jan, beginning of Feb. So if you're in Dubai and enjoy our podcast and you think we can do some business, reach out, get in touch, and we can.
Even a Dubai episode.
Good point. We might do a Dubai episode actually. In fact, we are going to do a Dubai episode. Let's do that. So if you're in Dubai and you're in this sort of in the business AI, if you've got something interesting to add to our podcast, let us know, and we'll do a recording while we're in Dubai. So that's going to be kind of like 3rd, 4th Feb 2026. Okay. Now we've also now firmed up our event. So we're doing an event in London near Moorgate again. We've done a couple of these now. It's probably our 4th. Very successful. Everyone who went there, I think they're fantastic. You're going to learn a lot. And that's going to be the 22nd of January. We're gonna have all the details on our website and on LinkedIn as well. We'll put some details in the description too. So that's 22nd of Jan, your future digital workforce event number 4. So there's a lot going on. So this podcast, all we do all day is talk to organizations about adopting and implementing artificial intelligence. Okay, digital workers is what we call them. We call them AI agents, or helping them do it. And the point is, what's interesting, and I'm going to be honest, sometimes frustrating, is that we built this platform, which is fantastic. It's actually amazing. Actually, it blows my mind. And that's V1. Waiting to see V2. And we approach organizations. And they're approaching AI. They're not, and we're going to talk about this in much more detail, but they're not kind of joined up, or they're trying to force the workflows and processes and organizational structures of the past on this sort of future technology. It doesn't work. So you've got to start really thinking about how you're going to approach artificial intelligence and implementing it with a slightly more open mind. And we're going to go through that in some great detail. And also, we've got another guest on the podcast as well, Andrew Gaule. He's going to join us. We've known him for he's probably been doing what we're doing actually for like nearly 2-3 years as well. Bit of an expert in AI too, talking especially to large enterprises on the sort of consultancy, helping them understand AI and adopt it. And he's also a Implement AI partner. So if you're an MSP, a consultancy, or even an individual with a network, you can become an Implement AI partner. Currently, it's an introducer partner program, but we are going to build a reseller program for probably launch it Q2, Q3 next year in 2026. So Andrew's going to join us a bit later on. So first things first, if you're new to the pod, we Implement AI. We help you grow your workforce without growing your payroll. A lot of information on our website. Go and log in, download our white papers, go to our resources center. We've got videos, we've got a huge amount of content. Follow us on LinkedIn. Alan's got loads of great articles about artificial intelligence and how you go about it. Are you going to do one coming out today? Damn, pressure. I need to write one. And then, and this pod actually is based on a couple of posts on LinkedIn that Alok and I have done over the last sort of few days. So it's probably 2 weeks ago by the time this podcast is out. Download the white papers. We're doing weekly webinars now on Thursdays, about 11:30, I think it is. So you go on our website, go to events, and you'll see the link for those. And finally, if you enjoy the podcast, it really does help us. It takes a minute. Please leave a review on Apple. It really does help us. Right one. And we're trying to get to like top 10 in UK management podcasts and top 15 business. We're getting there. Right, let's get into it. So everybody wants AI, but very few people are actually ready, able, and prepared to actually adopt it. Alok, discuss.
I've actually got an article today I'm working on, which basically helps understand where this is going to go in the future based on what happened in the past. So I've actually been analyzing robotics deployments in logistics factories for Amazon over the last like 15 years, basically. And when you look at like the number of, I'll give you the summary. If you look at like the number of actual packages shipped per person per hour, it's gone up 22 times. And actually, kind of the ratio of like the number of people to the number of packages being shipped, again, the number of packages being shipped per person has gone up massively as well. So you can actually see there's masses of, improvements possible. But the key thing is, if you're trying to get robots into a factory, you have to redesign the whole factory. You have to actually put, cages in place. You have to actually change the structure. You have to change the floor. It's a massive capex project, right? So that's a good kind of way to think about it in the way that, like, if you're doing with digital workers, because you don't need a massive capex project, but you do need to make some changes to the way you actually do some processes, basically, right?
Just on that, in extremis in factories in China, there are no humans and no light.
So if we start thinking about like what you would need to kind of do to kind of get things ready, it's kind of like a few steps. So why don't we work our way through going from like the top level view to the bottom level view? See, we've put structures together where we can have a meeting with the team.
The vision, internal alignment, your internal structure, even mindset and the approach. And in my article, I'm saying that even when you're setting up a sales agent, right, you're going to need 4 departments involved, and they've got to somehow sync and collaborate.
Yes, potentially. But I think the key thing is like as the leadership, you have to focus on massive transformative opportunities. Obviously start small, but also be focusing on like 12 months from now, 2 years from now, what could that look like basically, right? Like if we're able to like, unlock a new market segment, or if we're able to actually like, have more, customer contacts per team member, or we're able to have like, more retention, what could that be for a transformative perspective? So what I would do first of all is like think about like, what is your new whiteboard potential for like operational profitability, like in terms of efficiency, revenue per employee, map those things out and then have that vision, that North Star vision. And then you can start working on departmental transformations, basically, because ultimately it's going to come down to like the number of digital workers per human worker in your company. Like that's what you want to grow, but you want to get those digital workers focused on the highest leverage outputs, not just processing some zero invoices, basically, but also on like how you could unlock, significant revenue potential, or you reduce significant cost potential so you can redeploy people. So number one is the vision and the alignment for that, basically, I would say.
Yeah, and just on that, before we move on, so in my article, I was saying that you've got to think AI first, right? I know that's kind of a big ask in some ways, but you've got to realize that your competition in the future, especially if you're in the knowledge economy, information economy, it's not the people that you spend time with in your annual industry events, right? It's the people that are setting up a business, doing what you do, and they're going to be better at it with 25% of the cost base. That's your competition.
Exactly.
Let's go through internal alignment then. So this whole thing about cross functions, is it an IT project? What is it?
Yeah, I find this all the time, right? When we will talk with a company, they like, for example, we've had customers come back potentially like and say, "Oh, so do I need to get my developers involved?" And it's like, no, it's not a development project. We're not creating software, right? And then the other one will be like, "Oh, how do I edit the code for the digital worker?" It's like, no, you don't do that. We help you train and onboard it based on the different materials and have the elements, configured within there. Obviously, there does need to be some IT sign off and a few things like this, and that's like where you've got infosec and security and different things like this. But the key thing is to have like a structured program at a single place where everybody can see what's going to be happening and what needs to happen, basically. That then can accelerate things massively within businesses. But there's the key thing that you always say, Piers, there's no historical precedent for this. People have never bought anything like this in the past, so they don't understand what it's actually like to deploy, digital knowledge workers within their business, basically.
Yeah, and also we're learning because, we or nobody else has ever sold this service before, which also blows my mind as well. It's like kind of like selling mobiles in the 1990s. Nobody had one, literally. It's like, what does it do? What can I do with it? And then the iPhone came along. So essentially, we're selling a service, a solution that's never existed before. It's going to transform your business. The workflows you are used to, your SOPs, you are going to have to change them. We have customers where we deploy the AI agents, the digital workers, the digital team, and they've got second order issues now because they've got too many meetings.
Exactly. I mean, like I had a meeting on Friday with a customer, and it was like me and about 17 team members, basically, right? Like, and then we were kind of mapping through like all the different issues, and then there's some areas where there's a recursive loop that happens because of certain amounts of customer engagement, basically, and tickets, basically. And we were actually mapping out. I was like, well, what's the dream state? The dream state is actually to cut the time for waiting for processing for some of these things, so you can eliminate some of those issues and handle a greater capacity. So the point is almost like to help people understand what's possible. Then you can actually like obviously deploy AI to help now whilst working on the future state, the AI first vision, which is then going to be like almost replacing the need for all of those kind of down cascade issues, basically, right? And that's the key thing, because it mixes, process knowledge, splitting things up, modular AI deployment, teams of AI agents, all that kind of stuff basically together.
Also, there are two things as well, and one is with a lot of people that are engaging in some AI agent development project, right? It's a 6 to 12 month project, and we look at it, and I'm telling you now, if you're doing that, listening to our podcast, think again, because I'm telling you now, it is. If you think IT projects 90% fail, that one is going to be 99% failure, because even 3 months into your project, the tech's moved on. So, and then who's going to support it? Who's going to manage it? Who's going to integrate it into other systems? And the second point is AI digital workers, they're not like humans, right? And also they augment humans to do this. They do jobs, and they're very good at having we call them clean workflows, very specific workflows, but they also do work. They can do other things. A sales agent can do other things, maybe not itself, but you put it into a team. That's why we sell teams, not individual agents. But they do work. And your human resources are going to start doing work, not having jobs. By that I mean you could be in sales, but now you can do marketing and copyright and all the good stuff and web design if you wanted.
Exactly. And I think the key thing to understand is with the development project, what will happen is the developers will look at whatever workflow you've got and hard code that infrastructure into it, right? So let's just say it starts with a document and then there's a call 2 weeks later or whatever. They'll hard code that workflow. But that's not how real world works in your other departments. So if another department says, oh, can I use your AI agent that you built for this area? It won't work because it's not transferable, basically. So that's the key thing, right? You can actually like lock yourself into specific ways of doing things that are not transferable. And that's when you've got repeated CapEx costs, which is something to avoid, basically, right? Because what you want to do is be able to harness the best technology to deploy it. So it's a configuration project, not a development project, basically.
And the last point I make on this really is that, and then which is quite interesting, is that then you get people they're approaching it, and it's kind of over ambitious. It's too complicated. They've been looking at building some agentic monster on Make or Zapier or something, or N88, and it's just incredibly complicated. And you get one little failure, and then it cascades through the whole thing. So sometimes people are trying to do things that are too complicated, and they get frustrated. So we say, and we're going to come on to this in our methodology, and we'll talk about it with Andrew later, is how you approach it, where you literally do start small, keep it simple, and then you start adding complexity and making it create more value. But if you try and start in AI and make it too complicated, you're also doomed to failure.
Yeah, exactly. Because what I often find is people say, oh, I want to automate my support tickets, for example. Great. But do you actually understand what that involves, right? First of all, you have to be able to like classify the support tickets into whatever types there are. Then from the classification, you have to understand which scope is going to be for the agent to do in the kind of first deployment stuff. We'll go into more detail later on. But then the question comes into like, what's the knowledge base of how you're going to answer those things? Now, if they don't have a structure or a system to do it, it's all dead ends and it's all untestable questions, and they don't have clear statements about what will make things work. So that's where we got a process where we can kind of work through everything, but also help people understand the possibilities of what can be done. Because like if you've got analyst agents which can actually almost help you create a knowledge base and actually identify things, it can be working much quicker. But the problem is people have never broken this down because they often don't even know how the work is done. And one of the things that businesses are using now, they often say, Aalok, too many of the internal knowledge within our business is in with people's heads. How can we capture that? And so that's where this process of actually deploying digital workers with analyst agents can help capture that, basically. But we'll go through the process step by step.
And the great thing about doing that is then, you've captured it and you retain it. So if anyone leaves or falls out of a window, whatever happens, you retain that data, that IP, that know-how, which is core to your business.
We do the same thing ourselves. Like yesterday, I finished an 82-page prompt, basically, right, for an AI solutions architect, which can actually score and evaluate the work even from within our own team according to our framework. So the point is, right, you can actually then codify all that knowledge so other people can benefit that in the different ways, basically. So, we do the same thing ourselves.
But even we do that. We're like, oh, right. So we've got an agent now that can do sales engagement and do a BANT qualification. Okay. Now we've got an agent that can actually take a call and it's got your prompt. Oh, hang on a minute. So now I can actually analyze and talk to that company about what the opportunities are. Then we've got an analyst agent. Yeah, yeah. But analyst agent can then go off into the internet and do research on the organization and the sector. Okay. Then you've got another agent that can put it all together and create a proposal. And even we start thinking, hang on a minute, could you automate the entire sales process?
But that's our project zero. Every company should have a project zero, which is basically like zero touch for people for as many steps as possible, basically. So that's what we're actively working on at the same time. But yeah, well, let's keep going through the process, basically.
So go to our methodology then. So we've developed this to sort of help people on this journey, and we call it ABCDE, which actually does mean something. I don't know how long you worked on the acronym, Aalok, but it works quite well.
The whole thing is blueprint, right? And ABCD is one part of the whole blueprint, basically, right? But it's like, so the point is like, if you want to actually have a repeatable system to deploy digital workers across departments, you basically need to have almost like a project plan where you can get like, 5 people together, they all know what they need, and you can put it together, and then that basically can then be deployed from the team. So I can go through the steps if you want, or do you want to go through it, basically?
We'll go for ABCD and explain. Well, there's two types of blueprint.
So step one basically is current state, future state. Okay. So step one is current state is like, how are you doing the process right now? So we often do discovery meetings with customers, or we'll talk to things that'll show us exactly what's going on. So we capture exactly the current state. And as part of that current state, we can also track the velocity of that current state, how much time it takes for it to progress, how much cost it basically takes for that step to be done, and how many people are involved in it. Then we look at future state. What do you want to happen? What's the desired end state? Now, this might be more visionary, and it might be like all the different steps that they want to do. But the point is to capture what that AI first version looks like and the AI assisted version. Now, we don't expect any technical knowledge from the customer. So what we then do is we use our ABCDE methodology, where we split that desired future state into two parts, A and B and CDE. So A and B is validate the business case, goals, inputs, boundaries, and what is basically needed to do the 0 to 1 business case, like to prove the commercial value of that in that step. CDE is when you do with complex integrations, data elements, and enhancement, which then takes it to a more advanced functionality. So if you think about it, deploying an AI support agent, which could then handle, let's say, to begin with the A and B state, maybe 40% of tickets. And then with a CDE state, maybe 80% of tickets, right? But you don't go for 80% straight away. You go for the 40% with like a junior worker, which can be upgraded. So that's the kind of next step in that way.
You mentioned there, as I was about to say, it's a key point is it's like a junior worker or like somebody with experience that's new to your organization. You're not going to expect them to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour on day one. It's going to take time, isn't it, to build on the experience, the knowledge, and the activity.
And those edge cases that the junior AI worker shows, like basically like it's outside the 40% it can do, is the actual method of capturing the knowledge of all those edge cases. Because right now that sits in people's heads, basically, right? So this is actually helping accelerate that whole process.
Yeah, go for good. Sorry, we'll get Andrew in a moment, but talk about inputs, outputs.
Yeah. So then the next step is then in terms of like what is actually needed to make this digital worker happen. So people say, oh, how do you train it? So this is exactly how we train as a process. So what we would then give you is a list of like, okay, we want to have scripts, policies, refund rules, like escalation, different elements, pricing elements, ICP filters, good, bad interaction examples, examples of a document that would how it should be written, examples of like, different elements within knowledge bases and data elements. So all of that can then help us build together almost the role, goal, persona, and then the actual activity and the objective of the agent. You don't have to worry about that. Our team does that basically, right, within the section. So then that basically gives it the rules to be able to like operate as the way you want that digital worker to operate, basically, right? The second part of that is outputs, basically, right? So again, it's like, how you actually want the outputs to look. Like, is there a report format? So with our own agent, which is creating reports, I actually defined exactly what the report needs to look like, how the visuals are, what the graphics are, all that kind of stuff as well, and what the sections are within there. This then also gives you elements around any kind of like updates for a human in the loop. So a manager could be seeing what's going on and seeing what's going on in different areas and understand what was completed by the AI digital worker. And then also human in the loop is the next step, where it's like what escalations things need to be. Like, say, for example, something is outside the boundary conditions, it needs to be escalated to a person because it's a complaint, or something's outside the things because they're asking for something which is not within the scope of what there is. That then means that the team members can actually oversee and then handle those things. And over time, the digital worker can do more of those human in the loop elements, basically.
I think, and all as well, human in loops incredibly important as well, but it's also like even outputs, even inputs. So let's go do inputs. People underestimate how complicated it can be just to access inputs. So, a great example I think is on-premise practice management system with no API. So now we're configuring a computer usage in one of our advanced agents to go log into systems, even use get through two-factor authentication with an SMS if it needs to, log into a system, do what a human would do with a mouse and a keyboard and understanding what's on the screen, finding the data, extracting it, and that's your input. That's before you even start.
You can totally use AI to like help with that. So, for example, one of the things I did a post this a couple of days ago. I did 4 months ago. I wrote a very detailed guide. It's an internal document for like all the different elements for AIOS Part 1. And at that point, I'd gone through every single configurable element and like described what everything was. In the last 4 months, we pushed quite a lot of new things. So we deployed a computer use agent to open up every single window, every single element, and document all of that. So then that can then be used as part of a process to document things afterwards. So you can use AI to like help with your inputs as well, basically in different ways. That's one. See, then the other part is you need to have a primary owner basically within the business, right? This is very, very important. So there needs to be a primary owner in the business, which is basically responsible for coordinating all of these different elements. Because the point is, this is a cross-silo project which suddenly unlocks different possibilities, and nobody before had the authority to even think or discuss things in that dimension. So having that primary owner can then help with that. And then you've got like the dependencies, and then you've also got starting with the starting simple, proving value, and scaling basically. But that gives you an overview of our blueprint process basically, right?
But the primary owner there, I think it's a mistake to try and find or invent a chief AI officer. It's like unicorn manure. It's impossible to find.
No, but they're actually useless. You need the domain knowledge about how that thing is actually done, basically, right? And you also need someone that can basically link in the company to kind of get those different elements, basically.
That person's with that authority, understanding to get the job done and to get the inputs and understand where the outputs need to be is actually critically important. So that was a slight rant we're having in the pod today because we want to help you understand AI and to implement it. And you've got to think slightly differently when you're approaching this technology. So start small, think big, primary owner, and do not be afraid of realizing and understanding you might have to change the way you actually do things because this is gonna change your business. Right, let's bring Andrew in. So, Andrew, hello.
Hi, Piers. Hi, Aalok.
We'll also let our guests do their own intro because I always mess it up. so, so, so just tell us a bit about you because you've been, we've been bumping into each other for probably 2-3 years, haven't we? Actually, talking about
We
artificial
have.
intelligence, implementing it. So you've got various clients, especially enterprise clients. So as you know, we've been talking about the challenges with interfacing with organizations to understand this technology, implement it, and then think about the impact it's going to have on the organization. So it'd be really, really interesting to sort of share because you've been doing this some time now. And also, hey, Swad, you are an Implement AI partner.
I am. Yep. Well, we are.
Great to have you on the team. But to share your insights really about what you've experienced over the last 2 years. And you've heard what we've been talking about and what you think.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great to be with you and great to be a partner with you. Yeah, we've known each other now for over 2 years. And I suppose the thing that brought us together was, it's nearly the 3-year anniversary of Sam Altman pressing the button for OpenAI GPT to go live 30th of November 2022, right? So that's the sort of timing in the context of what's happening there. But I suppose we need to go back to my experience back in the mid 90s.
Give a bit of background on yourself though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So my background is being involved in management of change and working with large organizations. So when I was in Unilever in the 90s, I was responsible for implementing SAP ERP systems across one of our divisions. And we've touched on today that organizational cut through was one of the insights I sort of saw. And then back in the late 90s, I was preaching to my corporate about saying, look, this internet thing that's coming and what Jeff Bezos is doing is now going to change how our organizations work. And it's, oh no, people online are weird. We're not going to sell direct to customers. And then we saw that change. So from 2000s, I then started working with companies in my own sort of business, helping them understand how internet, electric vehicles, the rise of China, and that is going to change things. And then when we saw, when we all saw GPT back nearly 3 years ago, to me, that was another wow moment, right? And then when we first started speaking to organizations, it was, oh no, it just hallucinates. People are always going to be in the loop. And I was going, no, this is going to change and you need to understand. So I started running workshops to give executives hands-on sort of experience of what AI does, and that's where we came across each other, Piers and Aalok. And so it was really that stage back, 2 and a bit years ago, people didn't understand what GPT was, but now they had the wow moments when it could analyze text, when it could start doing processes, when it could start creating images, and we've sort of seen now how that sort of changes. And with my colleague, Dennis Bidinos, Dennis, tech entrepreneur, built his tech business and exited to Arm. So I guess we're like a reflection of you guys, the 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 bit of the business change sort of aspect and bit of the tech sort of aspect.
Oh, from the exit to arm bit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. So he's got experience of that bit and the sort of tech. We'll all have our exits. We can learn from Dennis maybe on how to do it. And really, what I've been doing over the last sort of couple of years really has been on that journey with organizations. But I suppose I'm very much now on that people and organizational change aspect, which you really recognize now when you build the AI workers that has to change how things operate.
So just talk through, we're working on some prospect opportunities together, aren't we? So you heard what we've been talking about, but what's your experience then of organizations and how their approach to it, especially larger ones, because they can be more complicated in terms of inputs and outputs.
Of the hundreds of individuals now who've been on our in-person and online workshops, that's changed over the last 2 and a bit years, right? So we've now got executives coming on the programs that we did recently who said, "Yeah, I understand GPT, and some of my colleagues have got GPT." Um, you get some who say, "Oh, yeah, we're doing AI," because they've switched on Copilot, which is like, no, that isn't, AI in processes. And then when you start talking to them, as you are very rightly saying, about let's look at your processes, let's see how we can engage AI workers. And that's a different way of thinking about the change, I think is a really good way of thinking about it. So, how can you use AI workers to take on some of the tasks to free up your teams to do more added value things? Or for AI to do things that would have been too costly before. So in the example we're talking with a prospective client, it's like answering the phones outside of hours, being able to take orders, being able to take bookings for appointments. But the current organization, they're saying, "Oh yeah, we'll try it ourselves," and they'll knock together something. But they're doing it half-assed, right? Excuse the language, but they're doing it half-assed because all they're doing is creating a text message, which is like an answering machine message, and then the human has to follow up. It's like, no, guys, the AI now is capable of doing that.
People come to us sometimes and say, and they ask us a question about the technology, and we say, we don't sell technology, we sell digital workers. That's
Yeah.
what we do. And we say, anyway, so we know, and they go away, they go, we'll build it ourselves. And they come back 6 months later. We built it and it was rubbish. And it does one thing. We're like, well, what
And
do you
it costs a
expect?
lot.
Yeah, it costs a lot. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. We had sort of 4 agents, 100 grand. Someone was talking to us about. We said, forget that. And then Aalok, and within 2 weeks, they signed up with us. Aalok got them on a call, and he goes, right, could you send us a Gantt chart? And Aalok said to them, I'm not going to
Yeah,
send you a
yeah.
Gantt chart. I'm going to send you an agent. It's
We're
like,
going to do it from. Exactly.
but the point there is that it's just a different mindset about you've got to approach these things. So how do you find it then? The main blockers then, like we talked about decision making processes, because no one person. This is not an IT project, right? It can be
Exactly.
senior leadership. It can be. I talk to CPOs, CXOs, CFOs, CEOs, all that C-suite.
E-
What do you
Even
find?
even what decisions to make, they don't even having giving them clarity over that basically, right? Like,
Exactly, exactly. But I agree. It needs a fundamental rethink of how we run our businesses and organizations. And we're now we've been preaching this for months and doing work with Henley Business Angels and with Henley Business School. And we're now going to be launching and sort of an accredited executive program at Henley Business School, which is one of the world's leading executive schools, to help executives get their heads round this fundamental change to how businesses and organizations work. And it's not an IT project, and it's not about just launching one sort of agent or bits of the process. That's part of the journey you have to go on. but you fundamentally have to think about how organizations are going to change. Because we're seeing now startups that are building AI first, and they are going to disrupt their sector. So just like going back to the internet era, when I was preaching about, have you people seen in the 90s, have you seen what Jeff Bezos is doing? And they say, oh no, he's just selling books. And I go, no, he is going to change how retail works. As we saw, it took about probably 15 years to decimate the high street because of online internet. I think the startups now that are doing AI first applications, where they've got AI agents doing marketing, doing sales, doing the operations, creating the processes, organizing the dispatch of items, is going to change industries. Now, the incumbent industries, which is, these executives coming on Henley programs are going to be the incumbent industries. They have got the advantages now of data, customer relationships, people on the ground, that if they move their organizations partly along that journey, right, as you said, with implement AIs, get these first agents in, start understanding it, get the agents to doing things that the humans can't do cost effectively, and doing things then they can deploy, they will have a chance of surviving.
I agree with you. So I think that's a great point you made there. If you've got customers, capital, a balance sheet, a brand, and you really do run with this properly and not just mess around the edges of it, you could absolutely transform your opportunity and become a leader in your sector. Those that don't are going to fall by the wayside, and the new competition we've all been talking about. People always say, don't they? It's an old adage now. AI is not going to not going to destroy your business. Someone else using it is, and that's so true.
Jeff Bezos is the perfect example because have you seen what he's doing now? His new company called Prometheus. Basically, it's AI to design industrial systems and manufacturing plants, at a massive scale, basically, right? So he's absolutely going in AI first, like to build that infrastructure. So it's exactly the right thing.
How do you approach it in terms of, we talk about, start small, think big.
Give a real example. When Dennis and I saw the AI, GPT going back over 2 years ago, we said, okay, right, how can we effectively use this? Dennis is a board member of Henley Business Angels. I'm a founding member. So we said, okay, right, we get dozens of pitch decks for each of our investment cohorts. And we said, okay, could we use AI to review those pitch decks with criteria and with the right sort of prompt and get it to sort of do the research? Similar to the stuff that Aalok's been talking about with the prompts and that you do with your bit. And yeah, we did that. And over a year ago, 18 months ago, we were showing that to our angel investors, and we were showing that to the entrepreneurs that sort of came along to pitch. And the AI was going, God, I wish I asked that question, because it was coming up with analysis and perspectives that me as an experienced angel investor. And when the entrepreneurs looked at it, they said, oh yeah, those are really good points. And actually the AI was helping them about how to lower their customer acquisition costs, how to increase lifetime value of the business. And then we also, bit scary, but trained an AI that looks like me to ask the questions to the entrepreneurs. So not only were they taking the information from the pitch deck, we had our little AI agent being able to interact with the entrepreneur to ask additional questions that weren't in the pitch deck. So now we built a platform which can analyze, going back over the history as well as you talk about. There's a lot of knowledge in our previous pitch decks, in our previous analysis of what we've done, to be able to do that sort of process. Now, we've been showing this to investment funds and large corporate funds that I've worked with over the years. And so I said, look, you get 1,000 pitch decks a year, roughly. 80% of them aren't relevant. They're not the right sector, they're not the right country, they're not the right, you know, phase of their investment. So why are humans spending their time doing a quick skim of those pitch decks? So the AI can review those things, right? Just as you talk about with your platforms being able to review historical sales or marketing information. So you get from 1,000 down to 200. You take this example. AI does that job that humans weren't doing in that before, or a fraction of the cost, and it also can look at historical information. When you then get down to the 200, the AI can do the interviewing with the entrepreneurs, help the entrepreneurs, and be able to get to, say, getting down to 50. Now, the traditional method is then that the investment fund or the large corporate interviews a number of those and decides on investing in 2 or 3 of them per year, investing, say, £5 million. Our challenge to them now, how AI is going to disrupt the sector, is instead of doing one of those 5 million investments, do 50 £100,000 investments and leave the AI make that decision, and the AI will help to monitor and to support that entrepreneur.
Or do 40 and then keep 1 million spare to put it into one of the winners.
That's exactly. So yeah, so where these funds were waiting to make a 5 million investment, they can now track and help more of them to be successful. And then when they need 500,000, they need 1 million, 3 million, those funds can invest at that stage. So if you're doing the old model, you will not get a look at the good ventures. And what that helps everyone, right? Entrepreneurs, instead of sending out 700 pitch decks and funds looking at 1,000, lots of wasted time that the AI can now really help. So my challenge to those funds, and challenge to anybody listening to this, whether you're trying to sell health services, whether you're trying to sell tires, whether you're trying to provide services, where can AI help you do what you currently do and augment it better? But you better watch out, because the business model is going to change with AI, whether you're an investor, an entrepreneur, a corporate selling widgets or doing any sort of services. So to me, that's where we are within AI.
You can totally also transform it, right? Because you can have that learning loop. So you take that model that you just did, 40 investments of 100K, right? But then also you deploy almost like an AI associate to each company, which is almost doing a weekly check-in on, like, what your priorities are, where you're going with things, how long till your first product, maybe give a view of your project management system, where the product development's happening. If you've got Stripe and you've got some billing, you've got some feeds into there as well. And then what you can actually see is, like, is it actually a deployment of product development sprint that's an issue? Is it a market friction issue? What are the objections you're getting from different things? And you can then have signals coming in across so many different sectors, which can then also be, like, leveraged to kind of like deliver more insights, or even help to them basically to actually, improve the effectiveness of your investments.
Exactly. So we were showing, like the example I was giving, feedback to a business which was doing more sustainable water sort of solutions. And the AI was giving advice to that entrepreneur about how to lower their customer acquisition costs, how to create documents to partner with organizations. And, as you're saying, Alec, because Henley Business Angels has got experience of hundreds of ventures, or if you're a fund which has got a portfolio of ventures and experts and advisors and other supply chain people, as you said, Alec, you can sort of say, oh, right, you've got this issue. Or, by the way, we helped this business 2 or 3 years ago to do this, and they increased their sales this way. I now need to put you in touch with this provider. And the way that's being done at the moment, it's maybe having one person who's an observer or board member who comes along, reads a board paper once a month, and maybe turns up to a meeting and is able to make an introduction from the limited knowledge they've got. Now
Well,
you've got
this
an AI
becomes Yeah, this becomes like actually like an intellectual asset and a differentiator of the capital actually for that investment fund, isn't it? Because if all the observers and all the board members are coalescing and consolidating their insights in a way, then it can just be like much more useful for potential people coming across the funding requirements.
So Andrew, one piece of advice for a reasonably large company thinking about implementing AI, what would it be?
Well, I think they've got to take a step back and take responsibility. If you're a senior executive in an organization, that things are going to change in your organization, and you've got to spend some time getting out of the day-to-day stuff that you're currently doing. And then as implement AI as you guys do, you've got to have that wow moment by deploying one of these AI workers in one of the areas that you've got experience in doing, and get on that journey. And you can't do it internally yourself because the tech is moving too fast and the capabilities are moving too fast. And so you've got to start on that journey. But also, I think that they've got to be looking over onto that next horizon. It's not just about augmenting. So that's where the programs that we're doing at Henley and thinking about this sort of future stuff, they've got to get into that. So they've got to split their mind into those two parts is really where I think they've got to go to be able to see this change, because it's going to change so rapidly in the next number of months, right?
Well, Greg Wilson, thank you for joining us. And while you're here, we should give a plug for Henley Business Angels. So if you have to go and check out the website, check out the criteria. But if you're, I guess, a UK sort of reasonably early stage company, go and have a look. They've got a good process there, and you get to go and pitch, and they've got a great network. So go and have a look at that. Andrew, thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you, gents.
Cheers. See ya.
Well, that was Andrew Gaule, one of our partners, an Implement AI partner, expert in sort of enterprise AI adoption, which is why we're working with him. It's quite big opportunities, actually. And he's also involved in the Henley Business Angels and the Henley Business Schools, doing lots of sort of AI training for C-suite executives. Very interesting. And again, Aalok, it comes across the same experience, really. Big companies, in some cases, even slower, even more difficult. But he's come across the same blockers. And we've developed a methodology to help you, if you are interested in adopting AI, which you should be, to overcome them.
Exactly, just to accelerate the whole decision process and just make everything into like a much smoother workflow. But people are people, companies are companies. They just need help to kind of like go into our AI assisted version, basically.
Well, fantastic. Again, if you enjoy the pod, please leave a review, write one on Apple Podcasts. Go to the website, log into our resources center. You can get on the Thursday webinar. Again, go to events on our website. All the information is there. And we look forward to seeing you again in about 2 weeks. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Implement AI podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how we can assist you and your business in leveraging AI for growth and efficiency, visit our website at implementai.io. Don't forget to subscribe to the Implement AI podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to stay updated on future episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.